let us explore mindfulness of mind and release. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. I see we have 2 participants on Yahoo. That's splendid. Why don't you say hello in the chat area? Or if you wish, you could say hello using the link in the description area below. And say hello to me over Instagram face to face. Okay, Olaf, I see you participating. Did you push the button that says request? If that button went away, then leave the Instagram live stream and return to it. There you go. This is terribly exciting, folks. Olaf, my friend, it's good to see you. How are you this week?
Right now it's not so good. I have done some mechanical stuff on a motorcycle today, so I got a little stiff in the back.
So you have a little what?
Back stiffness.
Oh, back stiffness. Gotcha. Well, that's no fun. My request to you is that you participate in this class on the couch with a heating pad so that you don't strain yourself.
Yes. Maybe I will try it later.
Okay. Okay. So on a scale from 0 to 10, what number is your back discomfort at this moment?
Should say it's a 6.
Ooh, that's substantial. Let's see if by the time the live stream is over, let's see if that pain has gone down a mite. Do you have any meditation questions for me before we begin?
No question.
Okay, it's good to see your face, my friend. Now go join me on YouTube. Bye-bye now. Okay. That was fun. So if anybody has any specific needs or Dharma questions, now would be the time to type it into the chat area. We are going to, today's lesson is number 12. And once I figure out how to put the lid back in my jar of water, I'm going to open up the practice text. And as you can tell, this practice text is a Word document. However, its counterpart on the downloads page, whose link you can find in the description area below the video, is a PDF. And if you have not already, do download the free Kindle app for smartphone. Because otherwise, navigating a large PDF, no less bookmarking a large PDF, is impossible. So use the Kindle app. You'll be glad you did. The only caveat is don't have the Kindle app save it as a Kindle document. At request, it'll give you a choice. And if it says in the choices, save document as Kindle document or save document as PDF, save it as a PDF. Otherwise, it's just glop. It's literary glop. Okay, so let's gallop ahead to today's portion. Mind. So that's kind of cryptic. Whoop. Hello, Celery. That's kind of cryptic and out of the blue. So hey, Scarecrow, how's about a little bit of context? Glad you asked. Approximately 25 centuries ago, maybe 26 centuries ago, a prince in northeast India left his palace to become a monk. As a prince, he was known as Siddhartha. As a monk, he was known as Gautama. He studied with not one but two meditation masters of his day who taught him various concentration practices. The legend says he mastered those practices to such a degree that they asked him to become their co-teacher, for they had mastered the path. The Buddha Gautama thanked them and said, if this is all their system had to offer, he felt his search was not over. He spent the next 5 years in the forest, sometimes alone, sometimes in the company of ascetics, practicing asceticism to the point of death. And then he basically said, this is nonsense. And he chose the middle way between the extremes of the debauchery of being a prince and the insanity of being an ascetic. And then he took another glance at concentration and realized it was more like asceticism than that. So he began practicing the opposite. And where concentration was active, he chose to be passive. Where concentration was rigid, he chose to be flexible. Where concentration was defensive, he chose to be vulnerable. And so the Buddha's Sati Bhavana, mindfulness meditation, was born. And so for the first time in many years, he relaxed his metaphoric doors of perception and was inundated with information of sensations and flavors and scents and sights and sounds, as well as internal information of emotion and intention and thought and recollection and fantasy. This was overwhelming, and so he found it useful to sort of sort through these experiences through four categories. And those categories are body and feelings and mind and phenomena. So we are exploring, this is the third week that we've been exploring the mind with an N, the mind's base of mindfulness. For the previous 2 weeks, we focused on aversion to shame and desire for fame. And this week, we're focusing on mind itself. Mind, that which emotes and intends and calculates and recalls and fantasizes, as well as, through its sensory organs, feels and tastes and smells and hears and sees. Just as we have a tendency to shove away shame or reach for fame, whether we know it or not, for it is hardwired into us, we tend to subtly hold on to what we think of as our mind. These three energies of shoving and reaching and clutching really do feed our neurosis. So we're going to play with 4 contemplations to help us let go. Not to get rid of our mind, not to lobotomize ourselves, not to shove our thoughts away, but to make peace with our thoughts. The Buddha was not a fan of willpower or affirmations or self-hypnosis, no less superstitions or rituals. In fact, it is taught that the Buddha explained it is better to spend only 1 hour in mindfulness than an entire lifetime in ritual. So that now that we know what the Buddha's methods were not, what were the Buddha's methods? Glad you asked. Super simple, easy contemplations. Lowbrow. Even a child could do it. Even an elementary school child could do it. So, without further ado, as we gaze upon the heading, we read that the following contemplation, we're going to view our minds through the lens of stress. You see, and the stress is in the ancient dialect of Pali known as dukkha. Sometimes it's translated as suffering, but it should be translated as stress or strain. You see, there is a mechanism in the wiring of our brainstem, which evolved because our ancestors lived on the edge of starvation. And so extraneous stress or strain could undermine survival. So when we explore how the very act of grasping at our mind tends to be even remotely stressful, there's a part of our mind that becomes more willing to let go. On the left, we see in smaller font contemplative notation, which is very much like musical notation. The phrase in-breath infers that when we notice our body breathing in, we shall silently and mentally recite the rhetorical question, grasp mine, which I will explain in a moment or two. And when we notice our body breathing out, we shall silently and mentally recite the word relaxing, which I also shall go into in some detail. But let's return to the idea of breath. There is a notion, popular but wildly incorrect, that the Buddha taught us to concentrate upon our breath to the exclusion of all else, thus creating the illusion that our problems are going away. The Buddha taught the opposite of that. Buddha was done with concentration, and he was done with asceticism, and he practiced vulnerable mindfulness, where he notices whatever comes up. But sitting, it doesn't take long for us to become at least peripherally aware of our in-breath and our out-breath. Now, this isn't active concentration, this is passive mindfulness, so we do not practice yoga's pranayama of breath control. Au contraire, we are just passively going along for the ride, like the audience member at a movie, eating their popcorn, sipping their beverage, and enjoying the show. Now, let's get to the main text. How grasp mine? What do I do with this? Well, this is a rhetorical question, and the power of a rhetorical question is found not in our efforts to answer it, but in our silent and mental recitation of the question. And when I say silent and mental, I mean just that. We're not reciting it with our vocal cords or our lips or ahang. We're reciting it with our mind. You know, the way we talk to ourselves. Since elementary school, we've each had an inner monologue. We can play games with our inner monologue. We can use our voice or the voice of a celebrity. Rod Serling, Sigourney Weaver, Samuel L. Jackson. This is a good year for Samuel L. Jackson to narrate what's going on. Wouldn't you agree? On our out-breath, we silently and mentally recite the word relaxing. In addition to silently and mentally reciting it, we actually intend to physically relax as best we can. Now, you might say, dude, I don't know if I can relax. I've had 57 Frappuccinos this morning. My eyes are twitching. No worries. Our brains are hardwired to relax at least a little bit with every exhalation. By silently and mentally reciting relaxing as we breathe out, we are harmonizing our intention with our factory-installed wiring. These small fonted words on the right serve merely as tabulatory notation, or in other words, they help us not to lose track. Oh sure, you could use a mala, but malas can get lost or stolen or broken, or in the age of fascism, confiscated. I'm very grateful that many, many years ago, an aging Bengali gentleman taught me crease counting, which I shall now teach to you. Just like in the gym, we divide our contemplations up between sets and reps. Sets we count on our left hand, reps we count on our right hand. We touch the tip of our left thumb to our left middle finger's tip. We're going to count the 4 breaths upon the right little fingers. Lower, middle, higher sets of creases as well as its tip. So let's start right now. We're going to rest each hand palm up upon its thigh. We're going to keep our head over our shoulders over our tuchus, feet flat on the floor, assuming you're sitting in a chair. That's right, folks. No slouching allowed. Unless you're Olaf and you have an injured back, then do whatever it takes to mitigate your pain. So everybody else, no slouching allowed. So, how grasp mind? Relaxing. We now advance to our second contemplation. During the second contemplation, we're going to view our mind through the lens of impermanence, which some people kind of feel is scary. Impermanence is known as anicca in Pali, and the reason I keep mentioning Pali is not because it's mystical or magical, but just to infer that maybe, just maybe, I'm not making this shit up. Who knows? So, we're going to work with a rhetorical question, but this one is twice as large, so we're going to karate chop our rhetorical question in half, silently and mentally reciting the first half as we breathe in, and the second half as we breathe out. What is the text of the rhetorical question? How could mind always change? Remember, it's not our job to visualize this or remember anything or figure it out if all we do is mindlessly, silently, and mentally recite these words in harmony with our breathing, 5 minutes every morning and 5 minutes every night for 7 consecutive days. If that's all we do, that's actually enough to see some shift occur. But do not take my word for it. Put it to the test in the laboratory of your body and your mind. Let's count now upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right ring finger. How could mind always change? We now proceed. Let us now contemplate our mind through the lens of anatta, which can be translated as not self. Now this is where many people lose their pseudo-intellectual minds. Contrary to the ravings of quasi-intelligent scholars, this is not where the Buddha tells us we must master arcane philosophical treatise. No, not at all, not even a little bit. All the Buddha wants us to do is use this technique to disrupt our habit of defining ourselves by what's going on by what's going on in our minds, or by what's not going on in our minds. And it's kind of like, remember when you were a kid and you had a record player and sometimes you would just drag the phonograph needle across the record and would make a horrible sound? That is what this is doing. It's disrupting our habit energy of trying to define ourselves by what's going on between our ears. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu wrote that those who define themselves will never know themselves. Again, we're using a long rhetorical question that we are dividing in half between our in-breath and our out-breath. How could mind not be me? Come, let us count for upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right middle finger. We now come to the 4th and final contemplation of the live stream. Notice mind, relaxing. So we've gone from grasping mind to merely noticing mind. And we could think of the difference as being like a grandfather at the park with his grandchildren. He could play in the sandbox with his grandchildren and his broken hip and see how far that gets him, or he can sit on a bench and watch his grandchildren play in the sandbox. So what we're doing is we're not ignoring what's going on, but we are observing what's going on from a place of centeredness. Let us now count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right index finger. Notice mind, relaxing. We have completed 4 contemplations. If our mind was a dog, right now, it would be panting. So let's help our mind to take a break, not with additional contemplation, but with something completely different, meditation. Now you might say, that's just wordplay. No, this is different, because here we're dealing with a specific object, our mind. And now we're dealing with whatever happens spontaneously. This is a deliciously vague pronoun that can be applied to any sensation or flavor or scent or sight or sound. It can be applied to any emotion or intention or thought or memory or fantasy. It can be applied to any circumstance, external or internal, real or imagined or recalled. Let's play with this for 16 breaths. We're going to touch the tip of our left thumb to the tip of our left index finger. A-OK. We're going to count upon the 3 sets of creases and tips of each of our right fingers for a total of 16. Notice this, relaxing. Remember, this is passive. We don't control what's going on. We don't analyze what's going on. We don't explain what's going on. If we must use a label, the only label is this. Notice this, relaxing. We continue on our right ring finger. Notice this, relaxing. We continue now on our right middle finger. And we conclude by counting upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right index finger. Notice this, relaxing. That concludes the meditation portion of today's practice, but let's conclude by, by me taking a moment to insult your intellect by reading to you. Now I want to make sure I'm in the right area, so I'm going to check the syllabus real quick. This is the 12th lesson, and 4 levels it is. Superb. That means excellent. Okay. So let us discuss the 4 levels of practice. Some folks are browsers. They come to class, but do no homework, and as such, see no transformation. What is your homework? To practice what you practiced in class 5 minutes every morning and 5 minutes every evening for 7 consecutive days. Students are folks who come to class and do their homework every morning and every evening. These guys evolve. Yogis are students who also perform one-day retreats every quarter, month, or even week, practicing 4 times that day. For instance, at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. If one has a roommate, a sweetheart, or a family, and you say, and they get used to the idea of you meditating twice a day, every day for 5 minutes, and you say, on Saturday, I'm going to meditate 4 times. Give them a heads up. They'll probably be considerate. And be sure to, do something with your roommates or sweetheart or family before you go into practice and after, so they don't feel abandoned. No one wants to feel like a Dharma orphan or a Dharma widow. Let's continue. Monastics, who I consider to be monastics, are simply students who live as if on permanent retreat, practicing 4 times a day, every day. Now, of course, the trap is to do it rigidly. Life throws us curveballs. We have to be flexible. But if approximately every 2 to 4 hours we're able to meditate, that works out very well. Now, most people don't want to become yogis or monastics. That's just fine. I don't want to scare anybody away. But for people who are interested in such a thing, I wanted to give them a heads up. 20 minutes of formal silent meditation twice daily for first-level students who are seeking a life lubricant. 40 minutes of formal silent meditation for second-level students, those who desire a profound evolution, such as healing post-traumatic stress disorder, overcoming a tragic past, or transcending a disempowering and oft-repeated pattern. 60 minutes of formal silent meditation twice daily is for third-level students, those who yearn to rapidly master enlightenment's blissful mindfulness, peaceful insight, and spontaneous compassion. Now you might say, dude, this practice was only about 5 minutes. How do I stretch this out to an hour? No worries. This practice was on the 210th page of this text. This text is full of practices. And you can practice as much or as little as you like, depending upon what you've learned and what your comfort level is. Ignore the lie that whispers no pain, no gain. For if we push ourselves too hard to meditate, we will develop an aversion. Meditate for as long as feels comfortable, consistently twice daily, and in time it is inevitable that things will shift in our life to create more time to meditate, and things will shift in our body and our mind to create a greater capacity and desire to meditate. Meditation should never be forced. We stop when it's time to stop. We listen to our bodies, because to do otherwise is utterly unsustainable. This concludes the live stream. No one's asked any questions, apparently, at least in the chat area, as far as I can see. So, if questions occur to you between now and then, when you play with this text on your own, then by all means bring those questions to me, either as a direct message on Instagram or as a comment here on YouTube. And I'll do my best to answer it, either in video or in blog. If you have found any value in these live streams or podcasts or blogs or class materials, numerous and free to download, then please consider supporting this channel monthly by using the link in the description area below the video. However, if at this time you cannot support us financially, then please support us behaviorally, simply by clicking the subscribe button, clicking the bell-shaped button, that's for notifications, clicking the thumbs up button, which means like, and typing a comment. For these innocuous activities really do help with the algorithm. Until next we speak, may you and yours... Oh wait, one last thing I almost forgot. Olaf, real quick, climb onto Instagram, let me know how your back is doing. Even after I've ended the live stream, I want to know. Anyway, my friends, until next we speak, may you and yours be happy and healthy.